going on, guys? Denver here. It is time for an actually very different video, and today we're going to be talking about my very first experience at a Microsoft store. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so before we get into it, I just want to let you know I do have my MacBook on my lap here. So I have a pros and cons list here. So for pros, let's go ahead and jump right into that. The pros are the staff are extremely friendly and not one complaint. They were kind of on me a little bit, like not, in a bad way, but just asking if I needed help. It wasn't to the point where sometimes at Apple stores where it's a little bit annoying, but it's just a point to mention that they were always asking, do you need help with this? Do you need help with that? And that's pretty much all that. But they were always very friendly, and they were also very quick to answer your questions. And if they didn't know a question, they would just call someone else over, or they'd redirect you to the question and answers on the Microsoft page. So the second pro is that it's not as packed. Now, I've been to Apple stores all over, and I've just, like, Canada, the States, and before last year, I was only ever in a Canadian Apple store, and I don't know if it's because the population wasn't that big or what it was, but the Apple store always seemed to be so packed up here, and I didn't even think it was that bad until I went to San Francisco last year. And San Francisco's Apple store is just packed. Like, you're literally elbow to elbow with the next guy. You have a question, there's literally, like, you're literally got about this much room. Like, you're pretty much almost tight if you want to take a look at a computer, any sort of device. It's just kind of packed. So when it came to a Microsoft store, it was kind of nice to be in a place that, some breathing room, I guess you could call it. And that kind of was very nice. And it also gave me more interaction with the staff because there was less people for them to handle. But they were always, going towards and trying to greet new people in. But, like, there had to be, in the time I was there, and I was in there probably a good half hour, there was definitely no more than 50 or 60 people in there. Actually, I'm going to cut that back. Probably I'm going to say the maximum that was in there is probably about 35 or 40. I don't know. Now, following the pros is a very, very big point. At every computer station, they have stools. Now, this is a very big point, like I just said. And I know that doesn't sound big because I guess it is just stools. But, again, when you go to an Apple store, I kind of get the feeling that they're trying to get you to get in and out as fast as possible because you have to stand there. The only place that there's stools even in an Apple store is at the Genius Bar. So basically what it's like when you have these stools is, well, it's just sitting at a stool. But even if, you're just standing there humming and hawing there trying to decide if you're going to sit down or not, the staff is always very, sit down, give it a shot, it does this and this and this. Now, I'm not a big fan of Windows 8, and I'm not getting into that whole thing. I'm obviously more a Mac user, but I just really appreciate when I can go in there and I don't feel rushed one bit, whether that be sitting at a computer or talking to a staff or anything. That's what I have to say, and that's what I really like. I can't stand when I go into a store and they give me 2 words. Like, literally, it's like, yep, over there. Pretty much that's all it is. Whether that be a grocery store, an Apple store, a Best Buy, Future Shop, anything. Even though Future Shop's, like, on its way out. But still, they've merged with Best Buy, but that's beyond the point. That's what I like, is when they'll sit down with you, and if it takes you 6 hours to get through whatever the problem is, they'll sit with you for those 6 hours and help you. That's what I have to like. And this all started with stools. I can't believe it. This stools made such a big point, but it made less stress on your back, on your feet, on everything. And especially when you walk a mall as big as the one I did, it was just brutal. Your feet are killing you, and it was just nice to sit down and just take a load off for a few minutes. So finally, in the pros, we have hands-on with all sorts of products. Now, I know this is nothing new. You go to an Apple store, a Best Buy, anything, you're going to have hands-on. But to be able to sit there on an Xbox, and play Kinect, and I mean, you could be bowling, you could be doing anything, and you could be taking up half the store. I mean, as long as, you're not bowling 60 feet away. But as long as, you can stand there and throw a bowling ball, virtually, I guess you could say, it was just nice because I could play Xbox, and you could even, which I know Apple's kind of doing with the Apple Watch now, is you could have a hands-on experience with their fitness trackers. Now, Microsoft does have its own line of fitness trackers now, and I find that very awesome of them. It's the time to get into fitness. We got the Fitbit ones. We've got the Apple Watch, in a way now. We got all these other ones that I think this is just awesome that we're getting all these hands-on we get all these hands-on experience to play. Whoa, sorry about that. I'm kind of, it's kind of late and I'm kind of tired, but I want to get through this. So, unfortunately, we got to jump into the cons now. There's actually less cons than pros, which is good. So let's just get this over with. So, unfortunately, a Microsoft store is smaller than an Apple store. Now, let me just say is that I've only been in one Microsoft store. I know there's some New York, all these other places, but I've actually only been in the one, and it was probably the place that they were able to rent. But I just found it smaller. Like, it wasn't like a big difference, but you could definitely tell it was smaller than the Apple store, which is actually only like a 2-minute walk away. Like, literally, you would have to walk by the Apple store to get to the Microsoft store, which is kind of weird, and vice versa if you're going to the other way. But yeah, I just thought I'd let you know is that was kind of nice. Well, not nice, but it was just kind of a good point to mention. But again, it wasn't like elbow to elbow like I was saying in the San Francisco Apple store. It was just smaller in real estate. And on to our second con, we have there's no such help center. Now, Apple has its Genius Bar, but they don't have a dedicated counter, bar, table, anywhere you can just book an appointment, go in, and get help. Now, again, I've only been to the one, so I don't know if the bigger ones would have this, but I do know is that the one I was at did not, they didn't have any sort of help. I mean, they did have staff, but I mean, what if you had a computer problem? Like, there's no way to book an appointment and walk in and say, hey, can you help me with this? Like, there's no way in that, because there was no place for them to do it. So not a big deal, because I actually don't own very many Microsoft products, but just something to mention for you. Now, one more thing, the last con is not as much staff. Now, I know I've been saying this entire thing is the staff's friendly, they're all over, but there's not that much. Like, you go into an Apple store, and I've actually never taken count, because, I don't care about the staff. I'm not there to count the staff. But I can guarantee you, if we walked into an Apple store, wherever it be, there would be at least 25 to 50, maybe even more employees in there. Now, this one, there was probably 20, 25, if that. I mean, it was late at night, so they were probably starting to shut down, because it was like 8:30 when I went. Actually, when I left, I got there at like 8. So I just thought that was something that should be noted. Alright, so our final category is similarities. Well, I'm kind of butchering that word. So for similarities, we're going to jump in right to the first one, is layout. Now, I know a layout's kind of weird one to mention, but it is something that should be noted. So I don't mean like real estate size. Again, I mean the way it was laid out, like on the walls. They had their computers. They had all this. They had the Xbox. They had the TV. Well, the TV was with the Xbox, but you know what I mean. So, and then they had their big banners, and then in the middle was all their mobile products. So like laptops, Surfaces, any other Microsoft tablet. I don't really keep up with Microsoft tablets, but I do know is that there were Surfaces in there, and they had all their things in the middle that were kind of more mobilized than a desktop computer. Okay, now on to another one here is the employee's uniform. I swear the first one I saw almost looked identical to an Apple employee. Like, I almost had to turn around and say, am I in the Apple store? It was blue. It had that little dog tag thing that they were at the Apple store. Only this was the Microsoft store, so it had the little Microsoft logo. And then you can't have the best uniform without carrying around a tablet. So of course they're not carrying around iPads. What are they carrying around? A Surface Pro. So, I mean, that's not a big deal, and I mean, it's not a pro or a con. It's just a similarity. Similarity. There we go. Having some trouble with that word. But yeah, it was a very important similarity. So for the next similarities, there we go, jumps all the way back to staff. They're always asking for help. Like, again, what I was saying earlier is it's not to the annoying point, not even close, really. It's just to the point of just wanting to make sure is that you know they're there to help you before you buy. So they kind of want to make sure you're not feeling pressured into buying, you know, a 6, 8, 1,000 or an Xbox, you know, any sort of product that's hundreds or even thousands of dollars. They want to make sure you're not feeling pressured into buying it. So that is just something I really enjoyed about it. That's why I mentioned it earlier, but it was also something to mention here. And for the last similarity, we have play before you buy. And I enjoy that. Like I was saying earlier, you could sit there for hours on end from the time the store opened to the time the store closed, and you could sit there and play and make sure it was something. They want to, again, make sure you're comfortable and know every little detail about the product you're buying before you walk out of there that day. And that's something I really like. That's why I mentioned it before again, and that's why I'm mentioning it now. That's why it's a big point when it's mentioned to similarities to an Apple store, because Apple does the exact same thing, and I find that awesome customer service. Again, I can't stand when I walk into a store and I can't find a staff to help me find something. Like, where the hell are you? Like, I'm trying to find you. I'm trying to give you my money. So where are you? But luckily, at neither a Microsoft or an Apple store, there was no such issue. So bottom line, all in all, if you're buying a Microsoft store, check it out, but don't expect the same feeling you get from an Apple store. Maybe to you it could be better. Maybe it's worse than what I've told you here today. But to me, it just didn't have the same feel. It kind of felt different. I'm not saying good different, bad different. I'm saying it felt different. So take that as you will. And if you, again, are near an Apple store, a mall with an Apple store, I know they're not everywhere, but they're starting to get everywhere. Feel free to check it out if you wish. Anyways, guys, that's it for my first Microsoft store experience. Let me know what your thoughts are the first time, if you've been in a Microsoft store. Down below what your thoughts are. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you find it too similar to Apple Store? Did it just make you feel uncomfortable? Like, let me know. Or let me know what else you'd like me to do. Or what store you'd like me to review next. I know this isn't really a review, but just something that, it was something from my experience. So yeah, anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your continued support, and we'll see you guys next time.